Yi Jung demands a wardrobe change, insisting the skirt is too restrictive for what they have planned. And Xiao Tao questions the necessity of the black pantyhose, clearly not sold on the new look. While the gear is admittedly better for mobility, she still struggles with the sheer embarrassment of it all. So Yi Jung shuts down the debate by confirming they are fleeing tonight and need to be ready for a long run. But catching her packing snacks forces him to clarify that this is a desperate escape, not a casual trip. Xiao Tao proudly presents the marriage dolls Yi Jung gave her, clearly thinking they are some kind of lucky charm, but he is already over the sentimentality and just wants to get their escape moving before they get caught. So they stumble upon a recruitment drive for the Hewan sect, which is openly scouting for handsome men regardless of their talent, and a recruiter immediately spots Yi Jung, promising him the perks of dual cultivation if he signs up, which is the perfect loophole for someone with his lack of natural talent, so he commits to joining on the spot. Yi Jung thought joining the Hewan sect was his ticket to immortality, but the cultivation world immediately descended into a massive war between self-righteous factions. Being an outer disciple with zero connections meant he was nothing more than cannon fodder, which is exactly how he ended up bleeding out on the front lines. A peasant girl named Xiao Dao found him unconscious after the mission, and she nursed him back to health while he was in a coma. He decided to ditch the sect life for good during his recovery, choosing a quiet existence with her instead of returning to the meat grinder. Everything seems peaceful until a sudden wave of spiritual pressure hits him, signaling that his past is finally catching up with him. This Jin Gang sect and the Fierce Beast sect are tearing the world apart, and Yi Jung realizes that neutrality is a death sentence, so he orders Xiao Tao to pack up for an immediate escape. Giving up on the dream of immortality, he grabs her hand to flee the chaos and find a life far from the cultivation meat grinder. Xiao Tao notices he is blushing under the pressure of their departure, but he brushes off the teasing to keep their pace high. Home is just a memory, so he promises that wherever they end up together is where they truly belong. Yi Jung arrived in this world as a transmigrator, but his supposed system is nothing more than a glitchy, useless error message. Without that cheat code, he quickly learned that his natural talent is absolute garbage, leading to constant rejections from every sect he tries to join. Every master he approaches takes one look at his pathetic aptitude and slams the door in his face, leaving him with nowhere to go. He is left questioning the entire point of his new life, wondering why he even bothered transmigrating if he is just going to be a talentless nobody. Just as he is spiraling into a midlife crisis, a sudden shout stops him in his tracks, forcing him to turn around and face whoever is calling him out. Master Bai Ningbing of the Jade Maiden sect descends on the scene, and her golden core stage cultivation makes her an immediate threat. Her disciples present a captured Hehuan sect member, asking for permission to execute the intruder on the spot. Bai Ningbing commands them to hold their fire, but the reprieve is only for her own benefit. Yi Jung realizes he is the one they have cornered, and he has absolutely no leverage to negotiate his survival. She ignores his presence entirely and pins him to the ground with a crushing strike, ending the conversation before it even starts. Bai Ningbing demands the Hehuan sect's next move, offering to spare Yi Jung if he spills the intel. Yi Jung mocks the offer, pointing out that a low-level grunt like him wouldn't have a clue about the sect's grand plans. His blatant defiance clearly rubs the master the wrong way, so Qingqi steps up to take over the interrogation, getting the green light from her master to handle the nobody. Xiao Dao rushes in to plead for his life, insisting that Yi Jung is innocent and doesn't deserve the coming torture. Qingqi sneers at Xiao Dao's desperate loyalty, clearly finding her sacrifice pathetic rather than noble, and before anyone can react, she drives her blade straight through Xiao Dao's chest. This fatal strike lands, and Yi Jung watches in absolute horror as his only ally is cut down. So he lets out a gut-wrenching scream for Shout while he scrambles toward her, shouting that she had nothing to do with this mess and shouldn't have been involved. Yi Jung demands to know why she killed Xiao Tao, but his grief is met with cold indifference. Qingqi justifies the murder by labeling anyone linked to the Hehuan sect as disposable, then gives him one final chance to spill the intel. He spits at her feet to show exactly what he thinks of her ultimatum, calling her logic absolute garbage and swearing he would never give a woman like her the satisfaction of an answer. Qingqi doesn't waste another second on his defiance, slamming her hand into his face to shut him up for good. Qingqi doesn't stop at a slap, she goes straight for his eyes, leaving Yejung blinded and screaming in agony. This guy collapses into the dirt, spitting out curses at the hypocrisy of the so-called righteous faction. Bai Ningbing doesn't even flinch, lecturing her followers that any method is justified as long as it wipes out the demonic filth. Her disciples fall right in line with that twisted logic, confirming their total loyalty to her cold-blooded code, and they swarm the defenseless Yi Jung, hacking away to ensure he stays down for good. Yi Jung is at death's door, but he spends his final breath cursing Bai Ningbing and Shen Qingqi with a promise of vengeance. His sheer obsession triggers a system override that detects his impending death and forces an emergency repair. This scene shifts to the Hehuan sect's frontline stronghold, where Yi Jung suddenly wakes up, completely disoriented by his own survival. He questions how he could possibly be alive, staring around at his unfamiliar surroundings in total confusion. Yi Jung regains consciousness to a voice he recognizes, and it's Feng Qingyan from the Hehuan sect, who immediately pivots to testing out their sect's specialized techniques on him. She explains that she found him nearly dead on the front lines and is now checking his internal injuries while noting his surprisingly high cultivation level. Yi Jung tries to steer the conversation toward the war, and she brushes off off his concern with news of a crushing victory, then she drops the real bombshell that their sect master has already wiped out Bai Ningbing's sneak attack force. Feng Qingyin confirms the Jade Maiden sect is toast, and their leader Bai Ningbing is currently cornered and wounded, which leaves Ye Zheng reeling over his own survival since he should have been dead after that last encounter. But he is not about to let this chance slip though, so he makes a break for the door to finish Bai Ningbing off himself, only to get cut off mid-stride as Feng Qingyin slams a hand down to block his path, and she drags him back into her grip, making it clear that his training session is far from over. Feng Qingyin pulls Ye Zheng into a tight hold, promising that his end won't be painful at all, and she makes it clear that dying at her hands will be a uniquely pleasurable experience. While Ye Zheng realizes his current cultivation level is nowhere near enough to survive being drained dry by this woman, then a sudden system notification flashes into view, announcing that the repair is complete and he has officially awakened the personality correction system, which leaves him completely blindsided as he stares at the unexpected message manifesting in front of him. Ye Zheng is still trying to process the sudden appearance of this bizarre system, which claims it exists to force harmony by punishing anyone harboring malice toward him, and Feng Qingyin notices his sudden stillness, wondering aloud why he has finally stopped fighting back, while the system reveals her true nature as a profit-driven predator who will do anything to get what she wants. So Ye Zheng can only stare at her in complete bewilderment, asking why this is happening to him right now. Ye Zheng screams at the system for its pathetic timing, and the system immediately retaliates against Feng Qingyin, binding her in chains of pure energy, which leaves her suspended in midair as she desperately tries to figure out what kind of technique is suppressing her. But the system forces her into a state of involuntary submission, and Ye Zheng watches the display, realizing that if this power had arrived just a bit earlier, Xiang might still be alive. Ye Zheng is completely fed up with the system's interference, so he steps through the glowing portal it just opened, and finds himself in a dark chain-lined prison block that looks like a total nightmare, where he realizes the cells are magically sealed and require specific conditions to unlock. Then he spots Feng Qingyin bound inside, and she demands to know what kind of treasure he used to trap her. Ye Zheng demands to know how he can earn rewards, and the system explains that thoroughly correcting a target's twisted personality yields the best payout, so he weighs the options as the interface updates with a second path, noting that simply killing and refining the target is an option, though it comes with a much smaller reward. And while Feng Qingyin sobs in her chains, the system forces him to choose between mandatory correction or immediate refinement, so Ye Zheng asks for the specific benefits of each, learning that direct refinement would boost him to the 6th level of body tempering and grant him the phoenix and dragon intertwining secret. Feng Qingyin is still screaming for attention, but Ye Zheng is busy weighing the system's latest offer, which promises a massive power boost and a top-tier cultivation technique if he commits to the long-term correction process. But he doesn't have the patience to train her, so he decides to skip the slow route entirely, opting instead for direct refinement to instantly hit the 6th level of body tempering. And as he triggers the lethal energy, Feng Qingyin realizes too late that her fate is sealed. Feng Qingyin is begging for her life, offering to be his slave if he just lets her go. But the energy blades don't care about her groveling, continuing to carve into her as she remains chained, and the system suddenly flags other cultivators approaching, forcing Ye Zheng to snap back to his physical body, which pulls him out of the mental prison, leaving him to deal with the real-world threat. Yet the energy blades stay active in the void, ensuring her punishment continues even while he is gone. Feng Qingyin is barely clinging to life in the void, still suffering through the system's relentless torture, and the interface updates to confirm her correction progress has officially hit the halfway mark. But the silence is shattered when a disciple kicks down the door to demand why Ye Zheng is slacking off during the frontline crisis, only to find the room empty of the prisoner and immediately demand to know where she went. So Ye Zheng prepares to spin a lie before the guy realizes exactly what has happened to her. Ye Zheng brushes off the disciple's questions by claiming the prisoner is off for secluded cultivation, but he isn't buying the act for long, so Ye Zheng grabs him and drags him into the fray, and they launch into the air to join the ongoing skirmish, where the confused disciple finally asks for his orders, only to learn their real target is the Jade Maiden sect master Bai Ningbing, whose brutal slaughter of the invading disciples last night has left the sect in absolute ruins. Ye Zheng learns Bai Ningbing is trapped in a cave, and the sect master is rallying troops for a siege, giving him the perfect opening to settle his score. This group arrives at the cavern entrance, surrounding the area with enough energy to make it clear they are not holding back. Orders go out for the disciples to fall into formation, and they blindly follow the sect master's commands without a second thought. Ye Zheng watches the pathetic display, knowing full well that these guys are just walking into a meat grinder. Other disciples brag about capturing Bai Ningbing for their own amusement, but Ye Zheng just scoffs, knowing they are way out of their league. This system pings that Feng Qingyin's correction has hit the halfway mark, and Ye Zheng instantly feels his power surge as he breaks through to the 5th level of body tempering. A nearby disciple notices the sudden spike in energy, but Ye Zheng brushes it off by claiming he is just hyped to capture Bai Ningbing. Internally, he is actually confused because he hasn't touched the prisoner in a while, yet the progress bar keeps climbing on its own. Shaking off the distraction, he orders the surrounding troops to shut up as they finally reach the cave entrance. This group bows to welcome Sect Master Xiao, and the man himself, Xiao Yaozi, arrives with the crushing pressure of a golden core stage master, which leaves the surrounding disciples struggling to even stand under such a terrifying aura. So the master waves off the formalities to get straight to business, and his subordinates quickly fall in line to obey the order. This elder starts handing out spirit elixirs to the disciples, promising they will boost their strength for the upcoming mission. But Yizheng takes his pill with a heavy dose of skepticism, already doubting the sect's sudden generosity, and when the order comes to swallow them immediately for the vanguard assault, he realizes there is no way the Hehuan sect is giving out legitimate power-ups. Suddenly, a massive wave of energy erupts at the start of the assault, so Yizheng fakes consuming the elixir, choosing to hide the pill rather than risk whatever poison is likely inside. This elder points toward the cave entrance, claiming Bai Ningbing is already on her last legs, and he goads the disciples by promising that a coordinated strike will finish her off for good. Greed takes over as the mob surges forward, eager to claim the Jade Maiden sect beauty for themselves. So they charge blindly into the dark, completely ignoring the danger in their rush to secure the prize. Yizheng watches the pathetic frenzy, realizing the elixirs are clearly warping their minds into this mindless suicidal aggression. This vanguard finally corners Bai Ningbing in the cave, and they waste no time launching their coordinated assault. She is barely holding on, kneeling in the dirt as her injuries finally start to catch up with her. A disciple lunges forward with a twisted aura, intent on dragging her back to the sect for his own brand of twisted correction. This sight of these Hehuan sect lackeys makes her blood boil, and she spits out her absolute disdain for their villainous methods. Disgusted by their reliance on cheap tricks, she gathers her remaining strength to show them exactly what happens when you corner a beast. This Hehuan sect lackeys rush in for the kill, but Bai Ningbing draws her sword to meet them head-on, calling out their arrogance before she even makes her move, and the lead attacker realizes his mistake the second her blade slices through his guard, as she cuts down the entire vanguard in one lethal sweeping motion, leaving Yizheng to watch from the cave entrance as the bodies hit the dirt. This disciple realizes Bai Ningbing is faking her injuries, and he knows charging in now is a death sentence for his cultivation level. She notices the strange energy radiating from the fallen vanguard, and she starts to question what kind of trap she is actually in. A sudden, overwhelming surge of power flares up, and she realizes the situation is far more dangerous than she anticipated. She decides to burn through her remaining reserves in one final, massive blast, and the sheer toll of that technique forces her to the ground, leaving her completely drained. Bai Ningbing is struggling to catch her breath, but the real mystery is why those corpses detonated on their own, and she realizes something is fundamentally wrong with the air the moment she catches a whiff of the surrounding mist. Outside the cave, the elder confirms the corpse explosion pills are working exactly as planned, so he holds his companion back from rushing in just yet. This blood mist left behind is actually laced with a potent aphrodisiac, which is the real trap he set for her, and as the poison hits her system, Bai Ningbing starts losing her grip on her own senses. This aphrodisiac poison is tearing through her system, and Bai Ningbing struggles to keep her head as her body temperature spikes. Yizheng realizes the true nature of the trap, and the shock of it is enough to make him spit blood. This elixir combines corpse-exploding properties with a violent aphrodisiac, which forces him to admit the Hehuan sect are nothing but depraved beasts. Bai Ningbing senses an intruder lurking nearby, and she snaps out of her haze to demand they show themselves. She knows someone is trying to catch her at her weakest, so she gathers her remaining power to blast whoever is hiding in the dark. Bai Ningbing lunges forward with a lethal strike, intent on silencing the intruder who dared to shadow her. She catches him by the throat, and he recognizes her as the same pest he crossed paths with yesterday. Disgusted by the Hehuan sect's twisted tactics, she holds him tight while he checks if the system can forcibly relocate her. This system confirms her hostility is only at 50%, so he decides to push her to the brink and force it to 100. He mocks the fallen Jade Maiden sect master, goading her with the fact that she is wasting her remaining strength on a nobody. This Hehuan sect member mocks her as a disposable cauldron, telling her to just surrender and accept her fate. Bai Ningbing finally snaps under the verbal abuse, launching a massive energy strike that sends him crashing backward. Frustration boils over as she blames Shen Qingqi for this betrayal, unable to believe she has fallen this far. Vowing to slaughter everyone involved in her downfall, she turns her lethal focus entirely toward the ant cowering before her. He desperately checks the system status during her assault, only to find her hostility is still sitting at 90%. This guy realizes his goading failed to break her spirit, and his confidence shatters the moment she retaliates. A massive shockwave of energy tears through the area, throwing him backward as she unleashes her full power. Bai Ningbing channels her remaining cultivation into her blade, turning the steel into a glowing conduit for her rage. With the sword fully charged, she closes the distance to finish the job once and for all. This system still reports her hostility at 90%, so he realizes he is not out of the woods yet. Her sword hits the floor with a hollow ring, signaling that the fight is effectively over, and Bai Ningbing is left standing there, realizing her own body has completely betrayed her. This poison is sapping her strength, and she wonders how she is supposed to keep fighting when she can barely stand. That aphrodisiac is cooking her from the inside out, and she is losing the battle to keep her head clear. She finally hits her breaking point and collapses, letting the drug take the wheel because she has nothing left to give. This Hehuan sect members watch from the shadows, house. Knowing the aphrodisiac poison is far too potent for Bai Ningbing to purge on her own, their sect master decides to let her suffer until she hits rock bottom, planning to swoop in only when she has absolutely no strength left to resist. Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing lies helpless in the dark cave, her body failing her as the drug takes total control. Every ragged breath she takes shows just how much the poison is tearing her apart from the inside. And then her tormentor finally closes the distance, ready to exploit her vulnerability while she is completely unable to fight back. This sect master realizes his cultivation has surged to the 9th level of body tempering, and he credits the primal yin holy body for being an incredibly useful tool for his rapid advancement. Bai Ningbing accuses him of forcing this outcome, but he flips the script by claiming she was the one who pushed him into it. He notes that being a lowly body tempering cultivator under the pressure of a golden core expert left him no choice but to endure, and now that the power dynamic has shifted, Bai Ningbing is left struggling to process the reality of her own defeat. Bai Ningbing grips her blade and makes it clear that their previous intimacy won't save him from her killing intent, because she is fully prepared to end him right here and now, and as she lunges forward, the system alerts him that her malice has hit 100%, which confirms she is a golden core expert with the primal yin holy body, even if she is currently heavily injured, but the system fails to lock her down due to a lack of prison cells, leaving him exposed to her strike. This sect master commands his subordinates to toss Feng Qingyin out of the arena, and just as the chaos erupts, Bai Ningbing finds herself caught in a sudden violent countermaneuver. Heavy chains materialize out of thin air to bind her, and she realizes her mobility is completely gone. This sect master shifts his target to her, ordering his team to drag her into custody, and the system finally forces her into the containment space before she can even react to the trap. This sect master stabilizes his connection to the system, finally securing his hold over the space, and that twisted grin shows he knows exactly how much power he has over her now. This system locks Bai Ningbing into a damp, isolated cell where her cultivation is completely suppressed. Then he enters the containment space to assert his total control, grabbing her hair as she realizes she is helpless. So she demands to know his true identity and how he managed to pull off a trick like this. This sect master strikes back at Bai Ningbing, making it clear she has zero leverage left in this cell, and he shuts down her defiance by telling her she is currently too pathetic to even demand answers. He checks the system for the payout on her full correction, which promises total enslavement and a massive boost to his own cultivation. So he taunts her with the fact that her suffering is going to net him the blazing flame holy body. With the goal in sight, he pulls out a training whip and decides it is time to get serious about breaking her spirit. Bai Ningbing begs for mercy, but the sect master ignores her pleas and prepares to strike again. A system warning suddenly interrupts him, alerting the sect master that other cultivators are closing in on his location. An outside force slams into the containment barrier with enough power to shatter the seal, and the entire space collapses instantly, leaving him completely exposed to the incoming threat. A group of powerful cultivators emerges from the dust, signaling that his interrogation session is officially cut short. This sect master finally tracks her down, mocking Bai Ningbing as he steps into the light, and she realizes the entire group is blocking the cave entrance, leaving her with absolutely nowhere to run. With the only exit sealed off by her enemies, she knows she is completely cornered in this dead end. Bai Ningbing decides to bet everything on one final, desperate burst of power to break the deadlock, but the strain of the technique backfires instantly, leaving her coughing up blood as she realizes she pushed her limits way too far. This sect master commands his subordinates to scatter, clearing the immediate area for a closer look. He scans the wreckage and realizes the situation has taken a turn he did not anticipate, and when his subordinate reports that most of the disciples are dead, he is genuinely surprised that anyone survived at all. This report confirms the woman they found is not Bai Ningbing, which leaves the sect master staring at a total stranger who has no idea where she is. He realizes his target has slipped through his fingers, so he immediately launches a lethal strike at the woman to vent his frustration. This sect master is convinced his net trapped Bai Ningbing, but he just crushed a random woman instead, and he demands she reveal the target's location, though she clearly has no idea where the girl went. His subordinates try to calm him by suggesting their own cannon fodder might have already killed her, but they quietly wonder if the sect master has finally snapped from the stress of losing his long-awaited prize. This man loses his grip on reality and erupts into manic laughter, proving his obsession has officially pushed him over the edge. This sect master finally snaps, accusing the girl of hiding her true cultivation and masquerading as Bai Ningbing, and as he forces the issue, a blinding light erupts from her body to strip away the illusion, which finally forces the sect master to explain to his confused lackey that the woman was just a shell for Bai Ningbing's disguise. But the girl looks genuinely baffled by the accusation, clearly having no idea what he is talking about. And while she pleads her innocence, the real Bai Ningbing watches from the shadows, laughing at how the sect master just played himself. This sect master isn't buying her story about the aura, but she keeps insisting it is just a byproduct of her sex training. He ignores the defense and points out that Yi Zheng is still breathing, which is a major problem for her. Realizing her cover is about to be blown by the witness, she loses her cool and lashes out at the sect master. She tries to take him out in a fit of rage, but he is already prepared for her move. He shuts down her attempt to collude with the witness, and he makes sure she regrets trying to fight back. This sect master orders his subordinate to revive the unconscious survivor, so the man grabs Yi Zheng by the chin to force his mouth open, and he feeds him a pill to drag him back from the brink of death, which works well enough for Yejung to thank Elder Niao before the sect master demands a full report on the cave. And Yejung claims his entire group committed suicide by blowing themselves up, leaving Bai Ningbing heavily wounded in the process. This sect master confirms he finally unmasked Bai Ningbing, and he is clearly loving every second of this victory. He orders her sealed away for future refinement into a cultivation cauldron, so his men drag her off without a second thought. Bai Ningbing is absolutely seething at Yejung for selling her out, but he just stares back with a smug, cold look of satisfaction. With the Jade Maiden sect effectively neutralized, the sect master decides it is time to head back to the main battlefield. He stops in his tracks though, because that story about the entire enemy group blowing themselves up just doesn't sit right with him. This sect master isn't buying the story and demands to know how a weakling survived, so Yejung scrambles to invent a lie before the suspicion turns into a death sentence, claiming that a mysterious elixir and a strike from Bai Ningbing somehow boosted his cultivation level. But the sect master just sees a rare drug-resistant physique perfect for his empty testing position, and now Yejung realizes he just traded a death sentence for a life of torture. This sect master drops a heavy hand on Yejung's shoulder and declares him his new personal disciple, which leaves the kid completely blindsided by the sudden promotion. Yejung immediately pivots to bootlicking, swearing his life to the Hehuan sect before the sect master orders him to stand and get moving. This sect master grabs him to depart while Yejung keeps his guard up. Knowing these two old men are definitely cooking up something dangerous, they take to the sky on a flying sword, leaving the cave behind as the real test of his survival begins. This duo touches down at the frontline stronghold Alchemy Hall, where a massive furnace is already roaring to life. Landing in the courtyard, the sect master immediately drops a new mission on his fresh recruit, and Yejung instantly realizes this old is plotting something dangerous. So he puts on a mask of total loyalty while secretly planning to bolt the moment things get messy. But the sect master cuts the act short and reaches into his robes to reveal the next step of this nightmare. This sect master dumps a handful of elixirs into his palm and orders Yejung to swallow them all right now. But Yejung hesitates because he knows these rare treasures are too valuable to waste on his current cultivation level. Yet the old man just mocks his supposed drug-resistant body, and the realization finally hits that he wasn't recruited as a disciple at all, but as a living test subject to refine these toxic pills. So when Yejung tries to stutter out a weak excuse, the sect master slams the table to demand the truth about his earlier claims, and with a direct threat hanging over his head, Yejung knows he has to play along or face the lethal consequences of crossing an elder. Yejung decides to gamble his life on the toxic pill, hoping he can somehow survive the intake. This elder demands he consume them one by one so he can meticulously document every lethal side effect. While the old man watches his every move, Yejung desperately racks his brain for a way to fake the results. A sudden, violent tremor shakes the room, cutting the experiment short before he even has to swallow. This righteous factions have launched a surprise assault on the stronghold, forcing the elder to abandon his human test subject. Yejung plays the loyal disciple, urging the sect master to handle the invaders while he stays back to refine the pills. This old man buys the act, barking orders for the disciples to mobilize while leaving Yejung to his own devices. With the chaos of the raid providing perfect cover, Yejung realizes he finally has an opening to vanish. But he isn't leaving empty-handed, so he turns his attention to raiding the elixir hall for every valuable treasure he can carry. He even finds time to trigger a system command to release Bai Ningbing, setting his next move into motion before he makes his exit. Bai Ningbing finally breaks free from her confinement, thinking she has finally escaped that hellhole. But the freedom is short-lived because Yejung is still holding the other end of her chain, and he yanks her back with a cold reminder that she is never escaping his control. Then he gets down to business, ordering her to help him raid the hall for the good stuff while tossing the useless aphrodisiacs aside. But she hits him with the reality check that she has never bothered with alchemy since her underlings did all the heavy lifting. Yejung keeps the pressure on, demanding that Bai Ningbing stop making excuses and start hunting for those high-end elixirs. But the former sect master is hitting a breaking point, wondering if she is really destined to be his personal errand girl for the rest of her life. Then she catches a subtle shift in his demeanor, noticing he has been white-knuckling a single specific pill the entire time, which betrays how much he is actually sweating this situation, and she realizes that if she can swipe that treasure, she might finally have the leverage to restore her own cultivation and turn the tables. Bai Ningbing spots a bottle of Foundation Establishment pills on the shelf, and Yejung moves in to inspect the goods. She sees her opening to strike, lunging forward to snatch the prize right out of his hands. This gamble pays off as she secures the pill before he can react, and she downs the elixir in one quick motion, leaving him no time to stop her. Yejung realizes she just consumed the very treasure he was guarding, and his composure finally snaps. Bai Ningbing mocks Yejung for his visible panic, confirming her gamble was spot on. This stolen elixir hits her system with overwhelming force, and she starts losing control of her own body. Tremendous energy surges through her, but she realizes her cultivation isn't actually returning as expected. Something else is taking over instead, and she struggles to keep her composure as the power floods her veins. This sensation of the pill feels strangely familiar, and she realizes she might have just made a massive mistake. Yejung realizes the old man set a trap with the Hehuan pill, and he is relieved he didn't fall for it. But Bai Ningbing is suddenly losing her mind, grabbing onto him with a desperate, frantic energy. and she is begging him to hand over the pill, completely abandoning her pride in the process. So Yejung throws her earlier escape attempt right back in her face to mock her sudden change of heart, and she finally breaks, admitting she was wrong just to get what she is craving. Yejung demands a proper display of submission, and the Heihuan pill finally shatters Bai Ningbing's remaining resistance, so she completely loses her composure and begs for punishment, which triggers a system update that boosts Yejung's cultivation to the second level of qi condensation. And he can't help but mock her for trading her pride to become nothing more than a dog at his feet. Then he gives her one final warning to stop playing games, forcing her to fully accept her new reality, which sends her scrambling toward the shelf to finally fetch the elixirs he demanded. Bai Ningbing is still reeling from the Heihuan pill's toxic effects, and she can barely keep her head straight as the drug forces her into a state of total submission. Then the system chimes in to confirm the first correction act is complete, unlocking a brand new room for further punishment, which catches Yejung completely off guard as he processes the sudden notification, and he realizes this unexpected reward is going to make his life a hell of a lot easier. Yejung gets a sudden system alert warning of combat breaking out right outside his door, and he realizes the righteous faction is finally launching their assault on the stronghold, which is the perfect distraction he needs to slip away while everyone else is busy dying. So he snaps at Bai Ningbing to stop playing dead and drags her along for the breakout. Then he kicks through the wreckage to clear their path and makes a run for it. Yejung and Bai Ningbing plummet through the floorboards, and they slam into the ground of a hidden chamber, where he realizes they have accidentally breached a secret subterranean level beneath the alchemy hall. So he conjures a flame to illuminate the dark, and the light reveals the captured Jade Maiden sect cultivators hanging in the shadows. Yejung illuminates the dark chamber with his flame, and Bai Ningbing recognizes the captives as her own disciples, Huar and Xiaofan, which triggers an immediate wave of self-blame for failing to protect them. Yejung doesn't offer any comfort, instead labeling the sight as karmic retribution for her own past. Then a voice rings out from the darkness, and Bai Ningbing realizes her disciple Lanji is still alive and calling for her. Bai Ningbing and Yejung move deeper into the shadows to find the source of the voice, and the realization that it is actually her disciple Xiaolanji hits Bai Ningbing hard. Xiaolanji is hanging there in chains, barely clinging to life, but she still manages to smile, claiming she knew her master would eventually show up to save her. Yejung isn't buying the sentiment, pointing out that surviving the Heihuan sect's torture this long is nothing short of a miracle. Yejung checks Lanji's condition and realizes her spiritual root is already shattered, leaving her just one step away from being fully converted into a cultivation cauldron like the others in the room. So Bai Ningbing desperately offers anything to save her, but Yejung reminds her that Elder Wu has already claimed the girl, and the truth finally comes out that Bai Ningbing's own eldest disciple betrayed her to the Heihuan sect during their last major clash, which explains why she's so broken. Her own student sold her out while pretending to protect her. Xiaolanji reveals she managed to hide in the cave, but Bai Ningbing is so desperate she offers herself as a replacement cauldron just to keep her disciple alive, which makes Xiaolanji snap at her master for debasing herself before a demonic cultist who will never honor a deal, and Yejung just watches the display with cold, calculated interest, while the system flags Lanji's hostility at 50%, leaving Yejung wondering what to do with this defiant little brat. This system dangles an Earth-grade treasure as a reward for correcting Lanji, so Yejung decides she is worth the effort. Charity isn't free for him, and he makes it clear that he only lifts a finger for his own people. A quiet whisper forces her into a corner, and the weight of the choice hits her hard. Yejung demands a public declaration of loyalty before he will even consider saving the girl. Bai Ningbing finally breaks, kneeling to announce she belongs to him and the Heihuan sect just to secure Lanji's life. Bai Ningbing takes a sharp strike for her defiance, and the system immediately flags Xiaolanji's hostility at 60%, which isn't high enough yet to trigger the correction protocol. Yejung shuts down her attempt to claim any special status, so she doubles down by declaring herself his slave and personal cauldron just to keep the peace. This system registers Xiaolanji's hostility spiking to 75% as she screams for him to release her master. But Yejung just mocks the irony of her loyalty after she and her peers once tried to kill him, and he makes it clear that he intends to break them both, leaving Xiaolanji with nothing but insults for his shamelessness. Yejung twists the knife by telling Xiaolanji that her master is already begging to become a cauldron, but the system reports her hostility is only at 88%, leaving him frustrated that she still hasn't hit the breaking point for his correction protocol. And just as he wonders why she is holding back, an explosion rocks the battlefield and reminds him he is still in the middle of a war. So Xiaolanji lunges toward her master while the chaos tears through their surroundings. Then a sudden strike shatters the chains binding her, forcing her to scream as the impact hits home. Yejung orders Xiaolanji to stick close if she values her life, but she is still trying to figure out his true intentions. A voice suddenly rings out demanding they stop as the newcomer realizes the Jade Maiden sect disciples are being processed into cauldrons. Linsa and his group from the Xuanling sect burst onto the scene, labeling the Heihuan members as thieves and calling for their immediate execution. This senior disciple of the Xuanling sect launches a barrage of flying swords in retaliation for the sect's destruction, and Yejung realizes he is severely outmatched by these righteous cultivators, forcing him to admit that he cannot take them all on by himself. Xiaolanji screams for help, begging the newcomers to save her and Master Bai Ningbing from Yejung's control, But Linsa recognizes the legendary Dharma body and realizes her cultivation is likely already tainted by demonic influence, so he immediately pivots to claiming her for himself, seeing an opportunity to exploit the righteous faction's #1 beauty. And as Xiaolonji realizes these supposed heroes are just as predatory as her captor, Yizheng calls her out for being a total idiot. Then Linsa confirms her identity as a Jade Maiden disciple and decides she will make a fine substitute for her master. Yizheng realizes that morality is just a convenient mask for these cultivators, and he decides to use their greed to spike Xiaolanji's hostility to the breaking point. One of the disciples offers to drag Bai Ningbing over if he gets a free pass, so Yizheng plays along and orders him to stand guard at the door instead. This guy eagerly agrees to keep watch, completely oblivious to the fact that he is just another pawn being moved across the board. Linsa and his junior brother start divvying up the women like property, claiming Bai Ningbing for the senior and Xiaolanji for the junior, which makes her realize just how vile these righteous heroes really are. Xiaolanji screams that they are shameless, but the junior brother just laughs and unleashes a brutal attack to prove exactly how far he is willing to go. This system alerts Yizheng that Xiaolanji has hit peak malicious intent, and he is clearly satisfied that his plan is finally working. Her status screen reveals she possesses the rare Pill Spirit Holy Body, but that does not stop her from being consumed by the flames of her own awakening. With the task of subduing her officially complete, the system rewards him with the Earth-grade bloodthirsty flowing light sword. Yizheng does not waste a second, deciding to use the blade immediately to test its power on his captive. Xiaolanji barely has time to register the threat before he swings the weapon, cutting through the air to deliver a brutal strike. This blade bites deep into his target, and the sword immediately begins drinking the victim's life force. This system confirms this bloodthirsty flowing light can evolve by absorbing Essence blood, so Yizheng realizes he just scored a massive upgrade. But the Xuanling sect disciples spot his hidden cultivation and the new weapon, so they scramble to set up a defensive formation and they launch a barrage of light-based attacks to pin him down before he can use that blade again. Yet Yizheng easily weaves through the assault, realizing his own speed has been pushed to a whole new level. Yizheng wonders if the massive power spike is just a side effect of the bloodthirsty flowing light, but the reality check hits hard when a stray attack lands, leaving him spitting blood and reeling from the impact. This sword-stolen essence is already running dry, and he realizes that if he doesn't find a new source of energy, he is going to end up dead. This disciples spot his sudden vulnerability and immediately coordinate to switch their formation, aiming to execute him and claim the weapon for themselves. Now he is trapped in their lethal light-based cage, and with his energy reserves bottoming out, the odds are turning against him fast. Yizheng is desperately parrying the barrage of light attacks, but the sheer volume of incoming energy is starting to overwhelm his defenses. One of the disciples taunts him, mocking his endurance while channeling a concentrated blast of spiritual energy to finish the job. This pressure finally breaks his guard, forcing him to cough up blood as the energy strike lands, and the disciples immediately pivot to a kill order, reminding each other to keep the sword tacked while they finish him off. With his weapon knocked away and his body failing, Yizheng is left defenseless as the cultivators close in for the final strike. This disciples realize the sword is a profound-grade treasure capable of boosting a low-level cultivator, so they move in to seize it for themselves. Yizheng is caught off guard when they actually reach for the blade, but he quickly realizes this is his chance to turn the tables. He remembers that blood is blood regardless of the source, so he decides to feed the weapon his own life force instead of waiting for an enemy. Yizheng lunges for the sword and forces his own blood into the blade, leaving the disciples completely stunned by his desperate gamble. This weapon drinks his essence and flares to life with a terrifying new power, proving that his sacrifice was exactly what the sword needed to wake up. Yizheng swings the awakened blade, slicing clean through the disciple before he can even react. This disciple feels his body failing as the sword's power tears through his defenses, realizing the weapon is far beyond his level and that he has no chance of winning this fight solo, so he attempts a desperate retreat. But Yizheng is already closing the distance to cut off his escape, and as the blade descends, Yizheng makes it clear that there is no running away from the consequences of this fight. This sword pierces straight through the disciple's chest, effectively ending his desperate attempt to run away. And as the blade begins to feed on his life force, he screams in agony while his energy is violently ripped away, with the disciple drained and the weapon fully charged. The sword embeds itself into the ground, pulsing with stolen power. Yizheng finally catches his breath over the fallen body, realizing he has managed to survive the encounter. But before he can even celebrate, he senses another presence nearby, and the fight is clearly far from over. Yizheng calls out the betrayal, questioning why someone would immediately try to kill the person who just saved their life. Bai Ningbing stares back, clearly unmoved by the debt of gratitude as the tension between them spikes. Even after being rescued, Bai Ningbing draws a blade, proving that old loyalties and faction lines run deeper than a simple life-saving favor. She admits that he saved her, but the rigid divide between righteous and demonic factions makes his death a necessity. This blade swings down with lethal intent, forcing Yizheng to face the fact that his mercy was never going to change her mind. Yizheng is done playing nice with the Jade Maiden sect and calls them out for their blatant ingratitude. Then he activates a binding treasure that instantly traps Xiaolanji in chains, leaving her scrambling to understand what kind of artifact she is dealing with. This system immediately prompts him to choose between mandatory correction or direct refinement to deal with his new captive, so he pauses to weigh the potential benefits of each path before committing to a decision, and the interface confirms that direct refinement will boost his cultivation to the peak of chi condensation, while handing him a supreme-grade foundation establishment for an instant breakthrough. This system offers a mandatory correction path that enslaves the target in exchange for a special physique, and because this myriad woods convergence body grants total mastery over all spirit herbs and plant pharmacology, Yi-jung realizes he is looking at a shortcut to becoming the world's greatest alchemist, so he grabs the restrained Xiaolonji to test his new leverage, telling her that killing her would be a waste, while she demands to know exactly what he has in mind. Xiaolonji finds herself completely restrained by the binding treasure, and Yi-jung doesn't waste time, asking if her pill spirit holy body can actually heal his wounds through dual cultivation. But she flatly refuses to cooperate with his demands, which triggers the system to force her compliance, pushing her correction progress up to 20%, and as the process completes, Yi-jung finally claims his reward, gaining the Myriad Woods affinity body to solidify his new power. Yi-jung feels his physical wounds vanish, replaced by the raw vitality of his new Myriad Woods affinity body, and he realizes the speed of his spiritual energy gathering has skyrocketed, making his cultivation efficiency better than ever. He can't help but gloat over the massive harvest he has secured from this entire situation, so with a flick of his hand, he tucks the still restrained Xiaolonji away into his storage space. Now that he has her, he is already eyeing her master as the next target for his total correction. A sudden violent blast rocks the building, signaling that the frontline stronghold is officially falling apart, and realizing he is way out of his depth, the disciple decides to cut his losses and bolt before he gets caught in the crossfire. He scrambles through the storage room to make his desperate exit, but a sudden, unexpected sound stops him dead in his tracks, and he turns to find a spilled jar of high-grade pills that are just too valuable to leave behind. This spilled stash contains everything from cultivation boosters and healing elixirs to some seriously questionable aphrodisiacs, and thanks to his new Myriad Woods affinity body, Yi-jung can identify every single one of them just by their scent, so he starts raiding the supply, stuffing the high-grade pills into his storage space as fast as he can, figuring that Old Man Wu's collection is the perfect parting gift to help him survive the breakout. But before he can make his move, a powerful woman slams into him, leaving him gasping for air. Yi-jung demands to know who just slammed into him, but Huang Tianmei of the Hehuan sect is already there, calling him out for raiding her sect's private stash. This sudden nosebleed makes him think it's just a simple collision, but his internal chi is actually spiraling out of control, because Huang Tianmei's innate charm bone is tearing his body apart from the inside out. Huang Tianmei's innate charm bone is actively shredding Yi-jung's insides, forcing him to realize that her legendary charm is a lethal weapon. She demands to know who sent him while pinning him down with a glowing energy tether, so he tries to talk his way out of it by claiming he is Elder Wu's new disciple and was just protecting the stash. He points to the 3 dead Xuanling sect attackers as proof of his supposed loyalty, and while Huang Tianmei clearly doubts a low-level cultivator could pull that off, she retracts the tether to hear his next lie. Yi-jung realizes Huang Tianmei is actively weaponizing her charm arts against his mind, so he fights to keep his focus from shattering. His internal chi is still reeling from the assault, but he forces himself to stand tall and keep his composure. Huang Tianmei acknowledges his calm demeanor, and Ye-jung plays the part of a terrified disciple to keep his cover intact. She demands he prove his identity through his actual cultivation skill, tethering a heavy furnace to force his hand. This massive cauldron slams into the ground before him, and now he has to show he is more than just a talker. Huang Tianmei tests his cover by demanding he refine foundation establishment pills, a task far beyond his current chi condensation rank, and Yi-jung knows she is trying to force his hand, but he refuses to back down from the challenge. So he relies on his Myriad Woods affinity body to channel his energy into the furnace and begin the refinement process, which causes such a sudden shift in his aura that Huang Tianmei is forced to rethink her entire assessment of him, and she watches in genuine disbelief as he stabilizes the process, realizing he might actually be capable of pulling this off. Yi-jung ignites the elixir fire to get the furnace running, and while the metal warms up, he takes a moment to scan the room for usable ingredients, but the elixir hall is completely wrecked, making the standard materials for a foundation establishment pill impossible to find. So he decides to ditch the official recipe entirely, confident he can whip up an effective alternative on the fly, and he identifies 3 specific substitutes: Heaven Swallowing Leaf, Fire Sunflower, and Life Spirit Herb. That should get the job done. Yi-jung begins dropping his chosen herbal substitutes into the furnace one by one, and the lid slams shut to seal the ingredients for the high-pressure refinement. So he channels his focus into maintaining the exact heat needed for this experimental batch, which forces Huang Tianmei to realize he is using a completely non-standard recipe, making her wonder if he is actually bluffing. And as the internal pressure peaks, he knows the final stage of the pill creation has arrived. This furnace erupts with raw energy as the refinement process hits its critical peak, and the lid blasts off, sending the newly formed pills shooting into the air where they hover in a perfect formation, glowing with the residual power of his experimental technique. So Ye-jung confirms the Foundation establishment pills are finished, proving his unconventional method actually works. And Huang Tianmei reaches out to inspect the results, finally realizing he wasn't bluffing after all. This pill isn't just a success, it's a supreme-grade Foundation establishment pill with rare veins, leaving Huang Tianmei questioning how a mere qi condensation's disciple could possibly possess such heaven-defying talent. So Ye-jung assumes he has cleared the bar and asks to finally head to the battlefield. But Huang Tianmei just chuckles and tells him that mission is off the table, and before he can even process the change, she snaps a glowing energy restraint around his waist. Huang Tianmei drags Ye-jung away, declaring that the entire area has officially become a battlefield, and the sudden forced movement leaves Ye-jung struggling to catch his breath as he coughs. But the real problem is Elder Wu, who lies broken and bleeding out on the ground ahead of them. So a new challenger steps forward to mock the weakness of those relying on demonic cultivation, and it turns out to be Bailey Tu, the third elder of the Xuanling sect, who is ready to finish the job. Ye-jung realizes he is in deep trouble facing a late-stage golden core cultivator from a righteous faction, and Huang Tianmei calls out the hypocrisy, noting that Bailey Tu's heavy killing intent hardly fits the profile of a righteous man. So Bailey Tu doubles down, insisting that demonic cultivators like them require nothing less than lethal force. But Ye-jung tries to talk him down by arguing that faction labels shouldn't force them into a fight to the death. Yet Huang Tianmei decides words are useless and activates her innate charm bone to take control of the confrontation. Bailey Tu begins to lose his composure as the charm takes hold, and Huang Tianmei realizes her innate charm bone is strong enough to suppress a peer, so she fully unleashes her aura to cement her control over the situation, telling him that they can finally have a peaceful conversation now that he is subdued. But the truce is a lie because she immediately parries his next strike with raw power. Bailey Tu demands to know why the Xuanling sect sent him, forcing his way through Huang Tianmei's charm with pure hostility, and he claims lust won't slow his blade, literally tearing at his own body to snap out of her influence. This guy reveals he severed his own desires years ago specifically to counter Huan sect techniques, which makes Ye-jung realize just how far these righteous cultivators will go to secure a kill. Huang Tianmei admits her charm arts are broken, but she warns him that he's still far from victory. Huang Tianmei strikes at Bailey Tu with everything she has, but he brushes it off like it's nothing, and he immediately activates his profound armor tyrant body art to turn his skin into literal steel. So her follow-up attacks just bounce off his chest without leaving a single scratch on him, which gives Bailey Tu the opening to gloat that his superior cultivation makes her charm arts completely irrelevant, and he lands a heavy counterattack that forces Huang Tianmei to retreat before she gets crushed. Huang Tianmei barely manages to deflect the massive blow, and Ye-jung realizes she is completely outmatched, so he decides it is time to cut his losses and run, but Bailey Tu slams his heavy blade into the floor and shatters the ground beneath them. Then he triggers the Myriad Blades enchantment array to lock down the entire area, declaring that the destruction of the Huan sect stronghold is his personal trophy for the day. Huang Tianmei is battered and pushed to her limit, standing alone in the wreckage of the stronghold, while Ye-jung finds himself trapped in the array's chains, cursing the two of them for dragging him into this fight. So he draws his sword and pours his energy into a desperate strike against the magical bindings. But the chains hold firm against his assault, forcing him to realize that his current strength isn't enough to break free, and Bailey Tu scoffs at the pathetic display, mocking the idea that a mere qi condensation cultivator could ever shatter his grand array. Bailey Tu turns his attention to Huang Tianmei, promising that she is next on his list for the blade, while Ye-jung realizes his current qi condensation level is a death sentence, and he refuses to let his second life end here, so he remembers the batch of Foundation establishment pills he just finished refining, and he decides that forcing a breakthrough to the next stage is the only way to survive this trap, which leads him to swallow the pills and gamble everything on a desperate power-up. Huang Tianmei senses the massive surge of spiritual energy being drained, realizing Ye-jung is attempting a desperate breakthrough to the Foundation establishment stage. Bailey Tu catches on to the plan and scoffs, mocking the idea that a simple rank-up could ever turn the tide against him. Deciding he won't give the kid a second to finish, Bailey Tu lunges forward with his blade to cut the process short. This heavy strike slams into Huang Tianmei's defense, forcing her to hold the line while the energy around Ye-jung continues to swirl. Knowing her charm arts are completely useless against this guy, she realizes her survival now depends entirely on Ye-jung successfully hitting that next stage. Ye-jung feels the bottleneck to the Foundation establishment stage finally starting to give way, but he realizes that raw power alone won't save him without the right techniques to back it up, so he demands the two captives teach him some high-level sword arts right this second, and the blue-haired girl spits back that she has no intention of helping a demonic cultist, but she is about to learn that he is not exactly in the mood for a polite debate. This chains begin to torture Bai Ningbing, pushing her to the absolute breaking point, and when she screams about her master, Ye-jung makes it clear that he's not playing around and will just refine her by force if she keeps resisting, which finally breaks her resolve. So she starts teaching him the flowing cloud sword art as his correction progress hits 20%, and he immediately dives into the technique, letting the sword intent flow through his body as he meditates. Then his eyes flare with that new power, proving he's already mastered the basics of the style. Yi Zheng channels the flowing cloud sword art, and the sheer volume of spiritual energy begins to warp the air around him, until he successfully hits the foundation establishment stage. And Huang Tianmei realizes the energy output is far beyond what a normal breakthrough should produce, which gives Bailey 2 the perfect opening to mock her for losing focus in the middle of their fight. Then he swings his blade with enough force to end the conversation permanently. Huang Tianmei takes a nasty hit from the blade wind, but she's not going down just yet, and Bailey 2's arrogance gets a reality check when a blade suddenly pierces straight through his chest. So Huang Tianmei immediately pivots to capitalize on the opening while he's reeling from the strike. This sword is lodged deep in his torso, forcing him to realize his opponent is playing for keeps, which triggers a feral roar as he shatters the weapon with pure internal pressure to stay in the game. Yi Zheng hits 20% correction progress on Bai Ningbing, which nets him the Blood Demon Sacrifice art, and since this technique burns all his blood chi for a massive one-breath power spike, he decides it's the perfect time to end the fight. But Bailey 2 isn't waiting around, lunging in with a killing blow, so Yi Zheng triggers the sacrifice art without a second thought, and the resulting surge of power completely shifts the tide of the battle. Yi Zheng channels the first stance of the flowing cloud sword art, and Bailey 2 scoffs at the display, clearly thinking he can just tank the incoming pressure, but the boundless sea of clouds technique tears through the air with enough force to shatter his guard. Yet the massive energy drain from the sacrifice art hits Yi Zheng just as hard, forcing the kid to his knees as the brutal backlash of his own technique takes hold. This realization that underestimating a foundation establishment cultivator was a fatal error, and Bailey 2 demands to know how Ye Zheng managed to master the Jade Maiden Sect's signature sword art. But the internal damage from the previous exchange is already tearing him apart from the inside out, so he struggles to comprehend how such overwhelming power could possibly come from someone at that cultivation level. Then the final blow tears straight through his chest, leaving him with no way to recover from the lethal strike. Bai Ningbing watches the aftermath from her chains, realizing the fight has finally reached its bloody conclusion, and Ye Zheng stares at the corpse of Bailey 2, still struggling to process that he actually took down such a high-level threat. But the reality of his own condition hits hard when he realizes even his myriad Woods affinity body can't recover his lost energy, so he collapses as the total depletion of his blood chi leaves him completely defenseless. Then Bai Ningbing steps in to stabilize him, clearly amused that this kid has finally caught her attention. This scene shifts to the Zhuanling sect, where the usual quiet is about to be shattered, as a panicked messenger arrives on a flying sword, desperate to deliver news that cannot wait. But the sect master is clearly annoyed by the interruption, demanding to know why his peace is being disturbed, and the messenger reveals that Bailey Lin Si's soul lamp has been extinguished, confirming his great-grandson is dead. So the sect master finally understands the gravity of the loss, and the reality of the situation begins to set in. This sect master's aura flares as he processes the news of the massacre, and his manic laughter echoes through the hall, signaling that someone is about to pay a heavy price, because the messenger confirms the murders took place at the Hehuan sect's frontline stronghold, which confirms the loss of both a sect elder and his own grandson in one stroke. So he tears open a portal to launch a full-scale retaliation against the Hehuan sect. A subordinate tries to talk the sect master out of a rash retaliations by suggesting a temporary truce, but the sect master refuses to swallow his pride and prepares to burn everything down, until second elder Yin Buping steps in with a plan to feign peace and strike when the enemy least expects it, and the sect master leans in to catch the details of this backstabbing maneuver. Then he fully commits to the trap, praising the elder for his perfectly ruthless advice. This sect master isn't done yet, tasking Elder Yin with one final dirty job to settle the score. He demands the hidden agents mobilize immediately, making it clear that the person responsible for his grandson's death needs to be eliminated by any means necessary. These shadowy operatives confirm the order without hesitation, ready to carry out the lethal command. Projectiles streak toward their target as the agents initiate the hunt, while the moon rises over the sect, marking the start of a cold-blooded pursuit. This scene shifts to the Hehuan sect's frontline stronghold, which is currently bracing for the inevitable fallout, where Elder Huang arrives carrying a severely wounded comrade and orders the guards to lock down the perimeter now that the Righteous Alliance has paused their assault. And when her subordinates offer to take the injured junior brother off her hands for medical treatment, she shuts them down immediately, insisting that she is the only one who can handle his recovery, so she begins channeling her own energy into him, taking full control of the healing process herself. Elder Huang brushes off the surrounding gossip with a cold scoff, calling the onlookers loose-lipped fools for speculating about her interest in the wounded man. Then she turns her focus to the unconscious guy whose chest is marked by a glowing, jagged wound, and she decides it is time to uncover the secrets hidden within his cultivation, noting the specific sword art that killed Bailey 2 and a strange, lingering scent of grass and trees on his skin. Huang Tianmei activates her innate charm bone to peer directly into his cultivation, and the system immediately flags a high-intensity mental invasion that starts dragging his consciousness down. But because she lacks any genuine hostility, the system is powerless to intervene and stop the probe, so she keeps pushing her energy into him with a playful warning that the treatment is far from finished, which leaves him desperate to hide his secrets before she digs deep enough to expose his true background. This guy is desperate to learn the Jade Maiden sect's secret techniques, so he demands that Huang Tianmei teach him immediately, but she keeps him on a short leash, literally, and questions why a man would even want to touch their restricted methods, yet he ignores the danger and doubles down on his demand, forcing her to point out that practicing this art is basically a death sentence because the Jade Maiden Sutra is strictly for women with a profound yin body, and any man who tries it will trigger a fatal meridian reversal, which finally makes him realize the lethal trap he was about to walk into. He's still dead set on learning the technique despite the lethal risks, so he grabs her and insists it's exactly what he wants. And Huang Tianmei can't believe the guy is basically begging for a suicide mission, but she's done playing nice, so she decides to stop holding back and starts digging straight into his cultivation to drag those secrets out into the light, which forces him to panic and circulate the Jade Maiden Sutra at full power in a desperate attempt to push her back. But the sudden violent surge of energy catches Huang Tianmei completely off guard as she realizes something is definitely not right here. Huang Tianmei realizes the meridian reversal is actually triggering, and because her own charm bone is suffering a massive backlash, she knows she has to cut the connection immediately, which leaves the guy coughing up blood as his internal organs take a brutal hit from the energy clash. But he manages to force her probe out of his system despite the severe damage to his meridians, and he notices that Huang Tianmei is now struggling with her own condition, giving him a rare opening. This guy is reeling from the internal damage, his meridians clearly shredded by the energy clash, while Huang Tianmei loses control of her own charm arts and starts acting completely out of character. Realizing the backlash is hitting her just as hard, he tries to snap her out of it, but the raw power leaking from the building is already drawing unwanted attention to their location, and two assassins tracking a blood soul token have finally arrived to hunt down whoever killed young Master Lin Se. This impatient assassin is ready to dive in and finish the job right now, but his partner shuts him down before he can make a fatal mistake, warning that Huang Tianmei is a 5th-level Golden Core powerhouse with an innate charm bone, making a stealth kill impossible, and the realization of that power gap forces him to back off and ask for a better strategy. So they decide to play the long game and wait for her to ditch the guy on her own. This assassins spot their target and immediately signal for their reinforcements to close in, deciding to wait until Huang Tianmei steps out so they can jump the guy with their 4 9th-level experts. But inside the room, the backlash from her own charm arts is tearing her apart, and she collapses onto the bed as the internal energy surge spirals completely out of her control, leaving her to realize just how lethal her own innate charm bone has become. Yi Zheng realizes that despite the brutal energy clash, he has managed to break through to the 4th level of Foundation establishment, and he recognizes this unexpected power spike as a genuine blessing in disguise. But the situation shifts as Huang Tianmei continues to suffer from the violent backlash of her own charm arts, and she lashes out, accusing him of intentionally trying to torture her to death despite his lower cultivation level, which leaves Yi Zheng stunned by the accusation while he watches her struggle to regain control. Yi Zheng tries to apologize for the earlier clash, but Huang Tianmei cuts him off, making it clear that apologies aren't going to fix this mess, and she pivots the conversation to his intentions, demanding to know exactly what he plans to do next, which leads Yi Zheng to wonder if she is fishing for him to take responsibility, even if he is just trying to survive the encounter. But Huang Tianmei grabs his face to emphasize that he is completely missing the point of how dangerous their current situation actually is. And she makes it plain that a 5th-level Golden Core expert like her is not going to settle for his current level of power. Huang Tianmei explains that her innate charm bone makes her nothing more than a living cultivation tool for powerful predators, and she challenges Yi Zheng to guess which high-level threat has his sights locked on her, before revealing that the bastard Xiao Yaozi is the one hunting her down. So she turns her frustration on Yi Zheng for the massive disaster his interference has triggered, leaving him to realize that her anger was not about their earlier physical clash, but the looming threat of an elder. Huang Tianmei figures she was destined to lose her body to some powerful creep anyway, so she might as well accept the situation. She shifts gears to their immediate problem, pointing out that Yi Zheng has enough hidden potential to eventually outclass the sect master. Admitting she is actually satisfied with him, she playfully flicks his forehead to keep the dynamic firmly in her court. Yi Zheng finds himself getting annoyed at being toyed with by a woman who clearly holds all the cards. He tries to play it cool by claiming he wants to protect her, even though he knows his 4th-level Foundation establishment strength is basically nothing. Huang Tianmei pulls Yi Zheng into a kiss, demanding he keep pushing her breakthrough, while outside on the roof, a group of masked assassins watches the building with growing impatience, noting that they have already wasted 3 hours and the sun is about to rise on their window of opportunity. So their leader orders one final hour of waiting before they breach the room to finish the job, and the rest of the squad falls in line, ready to storm the place if their target does not emerge. Huang Tianmei calls out Yi Zheng for his complete lack of finesse, But she suddenly shifts her focus when she senses intruders lurking on the roof. Realizing the masked assassins have breached the stronghold, she mocks the outer sect for their pathetic security, and she decides to let the situation play out, treating the incoming threat as a convenient test for her partner. Because if Yi Jung can't handle these small-time killers while he cultivates, he isn't worth her time. Yi Jung finally smashes through to the 5th level of Foundation Establishment, and he is already counting down the seconds until he can settle the score with Xiao Yaozi. This assassins on the roof see their opening and decide to strike while he is distracted, but they immediately regret the choice when they realize they have walked straight into a trap, and as the Xuanling sect's identity is revealed, their mission turns into a total bloodbath. Yi Jung decides these assassins are the perfect punching bags to test out his new power level, but the lead attacker isn't impressed, scoffing at the idea that a 9th-level Foundation Establishment cultivator could actually pose a threat, and he launches a brutal, heavy-hitting strike that Yi Jung welcomes as the perfect opening, smashing the floor into splinters with a single blow that misses its mark entirely. So Yi Jung uses the gap to slide under the reach of the massive arm and immediately goes on the offensive. Yi Jung isn't even breaking a sweat, mocking his assassin for being way too slow to land a hit, and he pivots instantly, turning the defensive opening into a lethal counter that cuts the attacker down. This bloodthirsty flowing light weapon drinks the spilled essence, triggering an automatic evolution sequence as it feeds on the kill. It's hungry for more, pushing the evolution progress to 30% while Yi Jung keeps the blade thirsty for blood. This rest of the squad finally realizes they are outmatched by his gear, so they scramble to form a defensive array to stop him. This assassin lunges with everything he has, desperate to stop Yi Jung from advancing any further, but Yi Jung cuts him down in a single motion, leaving the attacker bleeding out on the deck, and as the dying man collapses into his senior brother's arms, the reality of their failure starts to sink in. While the system confirms the weapon's evolution has hit 50%, Yi Jung just watches them mourn their fallen comrade. So the remaining squad members vow to avenge him and scramble to form a defensive array, though Yi Jung barely seems to care. This assassins trigger the Xuanling trap and kill array, and Yi Jung immediately recognizes the signature energy of the Xuanling sect. He calls out the hypocrisy of the righteous sect using such a disgusting technique, realizing he needs underhanded tricks to survive. Ye Jung summons Xiao Lanji to the battlefield, but she clearly isn't happy about being dragged into his mess. She demands to know why she should help a fiend like him, but he has no intention of asking nicely. This binding array forces her to obey, and she screams as she is compelled to fight against her will. Yi Jung shuts down any hope of negotiation, ordering Xiao Lanji to take out the assassins immediately, and she realizes she is completely at his mercy, so she asks for some clothes before she is forced to join the fray. This system registers her compliance, bumping her correction progress to 40% as she prepares for battle, while Yi Jung cashes in on the reward, gaining the Myriad Wood's affinity body and unleashing a swarm of vines to crush the opposition. This assassins scramble to boost their spiritual energy output, terrified that their trap is failing to kill him. This assassin tries to channel his energy for a final strike, but Yi Jung is already reading his every move, and he counters with a clean slash that cuts right through the guy's defense, leaving the attacker split in two before he even realizes his trap has completely failed. Yi Jung lets his blade drink the remaining essence to push his evolution progress to 70%, while the last surviving assassin finally understands that killing him is going to be a hell of a lot harder than they thought. This boss tells his dying subordinate that his sacrifice won't be forgotten, but the kid tries to insist he still has some fight left in him. That doesn't stop the leader from pushing forward, claiming the mission is the only thing that matters now. Activating the Spirit Sacrifice art forces his power up to the Golden Core stage, and he launches himself at Yi Jung with a desperate strike that catches the guy off guard with its speed, but Yi Jung is ready for the incoming blow and parries the attack like it is nothing. This boss's desperate strike detonates on impact, and he mocks Yi Jung for managing to hold his own against a Golden Core while still at the foundation level. But a surprise projectile suddenly cuts through the air, forcing Yi Jung to demand the coward hiding in the shadows finally show their face, only to realize his own blood is being drained by his spiritual treasure to fuel its upgrade. Yi Jung asks his blade if it has finally had enough, letting it feast on his own blood to finish the job, and the system confirms the evolution is complete, upgrading his weapon to a high-tier demonic blade while unlocking the lethal Blood Fiend Slash, which is exactly what he needs since the boss is still pushing the offensive, forcing him to parry while the new technique reveals its ability to bypass all defenses using his own vitality. But the enemy isn't backing down, boasting that his cultivation base still outclasses Yi Jung regardless of his physical strength. So Yi Jung decides to test that theory, channeling the power of his new blade to end this fight once and for all. This boss detonates his energy in a desperate attempt to wipe Yi Jung off the map, but Yi Jung is already channeling the Blood Fiend technique to counter the blast, and a monstrous multi-eyed entity tears through the battlefield, forcing the boss to scramble for his 5 Spirits Talisman as a last-ditch defensive measure. Yet the sheer scale of the incoming strike leaves him staring down his own inevitable defeat. This boss is coughing up blood and laughing like a lunatic. Knowing his energy is completely spent after that last exchange, Xiao Lanji drops in to mock his empty tank, but the guy is still delusional enough to think he can win this fight. She doesn't waste time with talk, driving a blade of pure energy straight through his gut, and the realization that he is facing Xiao Lanji of the Jade Maiden sect finally breaks his remaining spirit. Yi Jung calls it a job well done, ordering his weapon to finish the kill while the boss lies broken at their feet. This demonic blade finishes its meal on the boss, and Yi Jung taunts him about finally being satisfied. Xiao Lanji steps in to demand her master's release, but she is still bound by the system's influence. This system confirms her correction degree has hit 50%, which is just enough for Yi Jung to dismiss her concerns by calling them both his precious cauldrons. With the boss lying helpless at their feet, the power dynamic is clear as day. Yi Jung doesn't leave any loose ends, firing a final energy strike to put the guy down for good. This shadow recording stone shatters into pieces, and Xiao Lanji gleefully warns Yi Jung that his days of peace are officially over, because that stone just broadcasted their entire fight to the Xuanling sect, marking him as a high-priority target for every cultivator in the region. But Yi Jung doesn't even blink, pointing out that her own Jade Maiden sect is going to take a massive hit once everyone realizes their star disciple is serving a nobody like him, which hits home hard enough to make Xiao Lanji snap, realizing her sect's reputation is about to go down in flames because of his schemes. Yi Jung keeps pushing Xiao Lanji's buttons, forcing her to accept her new reality as his subordinate, and he makes it crystal clear that she is nothing more than a tool for his cultivation now. But their power play gets cut short when an alarm rings out to signal an incoming enemy raid, and it turns out the Xuanling sect didn't waste any time launching a full-scale assault on their position, which leaves the attackers confused as they realize exactly who they are dealing with. This intruder identifies Xiao Lanji standing right there with Yi Jung, and Zhao Kui realizes his intel is completely wrong since she was supposed to be a captive cauldron, which leads Ye Jung to mock the Xuanling sect for their pathetic security. So Zhao Kui snaps at the deflection and tries to force the issue, demanding he hand her over immediately or face a full-blown assault. Ye Jung crushes the surveillance eye in his palm, effectively blinding the Xuanling sect to his immediate movements, and he mocks Zhao Kui for his hesitation, goading the guy into finally showing his real strength. But the subordinate realizes the risks are spiraling out of control and tries to pull Zhao Kui back, which is when Yi Jung decides he is done talking and blasts them both with a lethal energy strike, forcing Xiao Lanji to scream for a ceasefire before the entire building comes down on their heads. Elder Huang finally arrives on the scene to investigate the massive commotion, and Zhao Kui immediately tries to play the victim, claiming Yi Jung kidnapped his cauldron right out from under him. Yi Jung isn't having any of that, firing back that the guy actually botched his security detail and is just using him as a convenient scapegoat, while Xiao Lanji casually drops the truth that she belongs to whoever is strong enough to take her, which makes Elder Huang realize Zhao Kui is the one who really screwed up, so he turns his full, lethal pressure onto the incompetent guard. Elder Huang's a penance for Zhao Kui's failure, and the guard immediately admits his mistake to avoid further escalation. Xiao Lanji isn't letting him off that easy, ordering him to dispose of the corpses littering the floor. Zhao Kui starts hauling the bodies away under the watchful eye of Ye Jung, but the guy is clearly still fuming, muttering that this isn't the end of their conflict. Yi Jung just grins at the empty threat, telling him he'll be waiting for whatever pathetic move he tries next. A new player in purple steps up to inspect Yi Jung's collection, clearly impressed that he managed to hide such a high-grade cauldron. She warns him that treasures like that need real muscle to protect, and Yi Jung is smart enough to just nod along. This elder makes it clear she plays by the same cutthroat rules, crowding his personal space to drive the point home. She orders him to get some sleep because she has a massive job waiting for him tomorrow, and Yi Jung just plays along, knowing exactly how dangerous it is to cross someone like her. Xiao Lanji finally finds her voice after the elder leaves, clearly rattled by how close she came to being taken away, and she admits she was terrified of the alternative, which triggers a massive system update for Yi Jung, as her correction degree hits 60%, unlocking the endless fortune creation art as a reward for his efforts, which lets him siphon wood attribute energy to heal up and restore his stamina, so he can't help but gloat that she is easier to manage than her master. And while Xiao Lanji has no idea what he is talking about, he is already tapping into the forest's energy to put his new power to the test. This 3 incense sticks suddenly extinguish, marking the final breath of the elite guards, and the elder realizes all 5 of his late-stage foundation experts have been completely wiped out, which triggers an absolute meltdown back at the Xuanling sect, where the master is screaming at everyone in sight, calling his subordinates trash for failing to handle a simple mission despite their high cultivation levels, so a terrified underling tries to talk him down before the sect master's purple aura turns lethal. This shadow recording stone finally plays back the footage of the massacre, revealing the killer as a Foundation Establishment cultivator from the Hehuan sect, and the recording confirms Xiao Lanji from the Jade Maiden sect was there too. So the sect master questions how a mid-stage cultivator could possibly wipe out all those guards, until he spots the weapon in Yi Jung's hand, which turns out to be an Earth-grade spiritual treasure that no ordinary disciple should ever have access to. This sect master demands to know who could have possibly taken out his elite guards, and his subordinate realizes the killer is actually the Hehuan sect's secret holy son, which suddenly makes the massacre look a lot less impossible to the sect master, since these hidden heirs are always kitted out with top-tier Earth-grade gear for their own protection. So when the underling tries to offer congratulations, he gets shut down for missing the point entirely. This advisor confirms they lost men but finally have a target on the Hehuan sect's holy son, so he plans to hunt him down in the shadows. and Lin Potion is clearly fed up with the mounting death toll of his elite guards, ready to step onto the battlefield himself to settle the score. But Elder Yin proposes a temporary truce to stop the bleeding, suggesting they wait for the 100 sects grand competition to eliminate the kid instead, which earns him the sect master's full trust as he hands control of the entire operation over to his advisor. So Lin Potion immediately issues a command to his entire sect, ordering them to stop all current attacks while they pivot to this new plan. Lin Potion is already sharpening his knives for the 100 sects grand competition, swearing he will end the Holy Sun's life and destroy his cultivation for good. But back at the Heiwan sect, Ye Zheng is completely oblivious to the death warrant, and he is honestly more concerned about why a 4th-level Foundation establishment cultivator is suddenly catching a common cold. So he brushes off the weird symptoms to focus on testing out the endless fortune creation art, which kicks off a massive surge of green energy as he begins to channel the ancient principles of life and death. This green energy Ye Zheng is channeling starts to aggressively feed on the surrounding furniture, and the chair literally rots away in seconds as the technique drains its physical essence, which makes him realize this isn't just standard cultivation but a brutal form of plundering. So he narrows his focus to test the limits of this newfound hunger, and the art immediately latches onto a nearby insect to strip it of its life force. Ye Zheng realizes his new technique doesn't just drain objects, it can actually strip wood attribute spiritual energy straight out of living cultivators. She calls the Heiwan sect out for being completely unscrupulous, but he just laughs and tells her this demonic art was his reward for conquering her in the first place. This system interface confirms the endless fortune creation art hits peak efficiency when dual cultivating with a wood attribute practitioner, and since she fits the bill perfectly, she realizes exactly what he has in mind for her, so he pins her down to start the process and drain her dry. Ye Zheng forces the issue by demanding she assist his cultivation, and she tries to fight him off, but he ignores her protests and pulls her into the shadows for the session, and once it ends, she is left completely drained of her energy. While Ye Zheng realizes the system's method actually worked, pushing him through another minor realm breakthrough, so she lashes out, calling him a shameless scoundrel who is destined for a miserable end. Ye Zheng tells her to check her own body, pointing out that their session wasn't just for his benefit, and she realizes her cultivation base has actually started to return, hitting the 3rd level of chi condensation. But he clarifies that he didn't just restore her old power, he forced her to recultivate the foundation from scratch, which means if she keeps playing along with his demands, her recovery will only get faster. So she decides to swallow her pride and lean into the process, convincing herself it's the only way to regain her strength for her master. Ye Zheng decides the current level of cultivation progress just isn't cutting it for him, and she agrees that a single session barely scratches the surface of her potential recovery, so they spend the night together until the sun rises on the next day. But an unexpected visitor interrupts them at the door to demand why they are still inside, and she freezes in the doorway the second she realizes exactly what she just walked in on. Ye Zheng tries to play off his night of debauchery as serious cultivation, but the girl waiting outside is having none of it, demanding he get moving for the day's big event. He brushes her off with a smirk, insisting that his own version of preparation is just as important, and then he flexes his new power, revealing he has already hit the 5th level of Foundation establishment. This sudden breakthrough leaves her stunned, but he is already eyeing her up, wondering if she has the right physique for his draining technique. Ye Zheng keeps pushing his luck with Huang Tianmei, teasing her about being jealous while he continues his cultivation technique, but she calls him out on his arrogance, wondering if he really thinks he can take on the sect master, and the girl watching from the sidelines is floored to realize he is actually having an affair with Huang Tianmei. So she decides to look past the mess and orders them to follow her because they have some people to intimidate, which leaves Huang Tianmei questioning the plan as they prepare to head out for the confrontation. Huang Tianmei makes it clear that taking out Bailey 2 is worth way more than just a pat on the back, and she promises that Ye Zheng is about to see his entire status within the Heiwan sect shift. With the entire sect gathering in the plaza following rumors of a massive spiritual disturbance yesterday, disciples are already whispering that Elder Wu died in battle, meaning a major leadership shakeup is coming, so everyone is betting on senior brother Zhao to step up and claim the vacant spot as Elixir Hall Master. This antagonist is already plotting his revenge against Ye Zheng, swearing that Elder Huang's protection won't save the kid today. Huang Tianmei steps out into the open with Ye Zheng in tow, drawing every eye in the plaza as the disciples lose their focus, because they are too busy fawning over her appearance and debating her newfound charm, which forces her to snap and demand absolute silence from the lot of them. Huang Tianmei commands the plaza's attention to deliver a critical update, and she confirms the Heiwan sect lost a Golden Core Elder, but counters that with the death of the Xuanling sect's Bailey 2. This heavy casualties on both sides have forced the righteous sects into a temporary ceasefire, which sends the disciples into a frenzy of relief as they realize they are no longer on the front lines. But she immediately shifts gears to address the power vacuum left by Elder Wu's death and the need for a new Elixir Hall Master. These disciples are already crowned Zhao Kui as the new Elixir Hall Master, and he plays the humble card by asking for their continued support, But while Zhao Kui thinks Huang Tianmei is finally playing it smart, he is still dead set on taking Yi Zheng down a peg, and Huang Tianmei cuts through the noise, is to officially appoint Yi Zheng as the acting elixir hall master, with full authority over the hall, which leaves Yi Zheng clearly caught off guard by the sudden promotion, wondering if she just put a massive target on his back, so the crowd immediately turns hostile, demanding to know why a newcomer like Yi Zheng is skipping the line over the rightful choice, Zhao Kui. Zhao Kui steps out from the crowd to challenge the appointment, arguing that his 15 years of service under the late Elder Wu make him the only qualified candidate for the job, and he points out that Yi Zheng is just a green newcomer who lacks the experience to manage the elixir hall. But Huang Tianmei ignores the protest and tells Yi Zheng that his survival in this role rests entirely on his own results, leaving Yi Zheng to realize that she is intentionally throwing him into the fire to see if he burns. Zhao Kui is doubling down on his seniority and experience, claiming he is the only one fit to run the elixir hall. Yi Zheng cuts him off with a sharp question about his whereabouts during last night's infiltration by the Xuanling sect guards. This question hits home, and Zhao Kui immediately loses his composure as he realizes he has no defense for his absence. Yi Zheng doesn't let up, pointing out that he was the one who actually took down 5 elite guards while his senior was nowhere to be found. He calls out Zhao Kui for waiting until the danger passed just to swoop in and claim the glory, leaving the senior brother completely exposed in front of the crowd. This crowd is starting to see through Zhao Kui's act, realizing he is not the respectable senior they once admired, so he loses his cool and tries to pull rank, claiming a mid-stage cultivator like Yi Zheng has no business holding the elixir hall. Zhao Kui demands a public duel to settle the score, betting the hallmaster position on the outcome, and Huang Tianmei immediately jumps at the chance to watch the carnage, giving the fight her official blessing. Yi Zheng is not backing down though, calling out the blatant cowardice of a high-level cultivator picking a fight with someone so far below his own rank. Yi Zheng decides to shut Zhao Kui up for good by accepting the duel, knowing it is the only way to silence the doubters. He pushes for stakes to make the fight worth his time, and Zhao Kui is more than happy to name his price. Zhao Kui demands the Hallmaster title and Xiao Lanji as his personal prize, showing exactly how low he is willing to sink. Xiao Lanji realizes she is being treated like a trophy in this bet, and the sudden objectification leaves her completely blindsided. Everyone else recognizes her as Bai Ningbing's second disciple, and they start salivating over the chance to exploit her for their own cultivation gains. Yi Zheng demands to know what Zhao Kui is actually putting on the line for this duel, and the senior just laughs it off, clearly thinking the kid has zero chance of coming out on top. Unfazed by the arrogance, he promises to open the senior's eyes to the truth, so Zhao Kui pulls out the Bloodwood heaven-swallowing cauldron, betting the rare treasure on his own guaranteed victory. This system immediately flags the item as a prime target for the endless fortune creation art, turning the senior's prize into Ye Zheng's next meal. This system prompts Yu Zheng to consume the cauldron, and he realizes it is the exact wood attribute treasure he needs to advance his cultivation, so he can't help but laugh at his luck, since the senior basically gift-wrapped the perfect power-up and delivered it right to his doorstep. Zhao Kui is still playing the arrogant card, betting his precious Earth-grade treasure as if he is already guaranteed a win, but Yi Zheng's isn't letting him off the hook with just talk, demanding a formal agreement to lock in the stakes before things get messy. He broadcasts the terms to the entire crowd, putting the Hallmaster title, Xiao Lanji, and both their cauldrons on the line for everyone to witness. This crowd is buzzing because Yi Zheng is wagering Xiao Lanji against an opponent 4 realms his senior, while Huang Tianmei watches with a smirk, clearly curious about the trump cards Yi Zheng is still holding back. Xiao Lanji is forced to witness the spectacle, and she finally realizes she is nothing more than a trophy to these men, which makes it painfully clear that Zhao Kui does not care if she survives this ordeal or not. This betting market officially opens with lopsided odds favoring Zhao Kui, and the crowd is already lining up to dump their treasures into the pot. This crowd is losing their minds, dumping spirit stones and gear into the pot because they think Zhao Kui's win is a lock. Then Xiao Lanji walks into the middle of this circus, and the atmosphere shifts instantly as everyone realizes the prize is now physically present. One of the gamblers tries to play it cool with Elder Huang, claiming this whole high-stakes bet is just a bit of harmless fun, but then a massive pile of spirit stones hits the table, and the sudden influx of wealth stops the betting dead in its tracks. Xiao Lanji just dropped 200 high-grade stones on Yi Zheng, leaving the crowd scrambling to figure out if she's actually confident or just throwing her money away. This gambler questions Elder Huang's decision to back Yi Zheng over Zhao Kui, but she doesn't even blink at the doubt. She tells him to keep his cool while the bet is locked in, assuring him that her investment is safe. Zhao Kui's lackey notices the slit and starts whispering in his ear, pointing out that Xiao Lanji is openly mocking his reputation. This senior's ego takes a massive hit, so he vows to turn Ye Zheng into a cripple just to spite her. Zhao Kui steps up to deliver one final ultimatum to Ye Zheng, setting the stage for the bloodbath to come. Zhao Kui demands that Yi Zheng kneel and surrender Xiao Lanji immediately, promising to spare his life if he complies. Yi Zheng just laughs off the threat, asking if the senior forgot to brush his teeth this morning, given the stench of his arrogance. Zhao Kui loses his cool at the insult and lunges forward with a lethal strike, screaming that the kid is courting death. Yi Zheng doesn't even flinch as he catches the incoming blow, stopping the senior's momentum dead in its tracks. Zhao Kui unleashes his Black Fiend spirit-breaking fist to force the issue, but Yi Zheng is already prepared to dismantle his technique. Yi Zheng calls out his blood-drinking demonic blade, and he successfully parries the senior's strike, proving he isn't just talk. This onlookers see him holding his ground against a peak Foundation establishment expert, but they decide he's only surviving because of his magical gear. Zhao Kui dismisses the exchange as a mere warm-up, then he unleashes his Black Fiend clone art to swarm Yi Zheng with multiple projections. Zhao Kui's clones swarm in for the kill, but he's swinging at shadows. Yi Zheng dances through the barrage without taking a single hit, mocking the senior by pointing out that his power isn't enough to finish the job. Onlookers are starting to panic as they realize Yi Zheng's speed is far beyond what they expected, which forces Zhao Kui to double down, insisting that being fast won't keep the kid alive for long. Zhao Kui activates the Myriad Wood Spirit Binding Array, flooding the arena with restrictive green energy. Tendrils lash out to pin Yi Zheng in place, but he doesn't panic as the trap snaps shut. Yi Zheng remains standing despite the vines wrapping around his feet, showing he's not going down that easily. Zhao Kui seizes the opening to launch a barrage of spirit-infused strikes, trying to crush him while he's immobilized. This senior gloats that the array only tightens with every struggle while draining his opponent's spiritual energy dry. Zhao Kui screams that this is the price of defiance, while his energy constructs and vines tighten around Yi Zheng. The spectators watch the trap close in and start questioning why Yi Zheng hasn't made a move to fight back yet. Yi Zheng recognizes the Myriad Wood Spirit Binding Array as a wood attribute technique, so he stops struggling and starts analyzing the flow. This energy of the array begins to warp as he taps into its elemental weakness, and he shatters the binding completely, turning the senior's own wood attribute power against him with a surge of raw energy. Yi Zheng channels the Blood Fiend Slash, tearing through the remaining clones while shattering the Spirit Binding Array, which leaves Zhao Kui completely spiraling as he realizes his strongest techniques have been effortlessly dismantled. But Yi Zheng just smiles, thanking the senior for the free cultivation boost he just provided, forcing Zhao Kui to reach for his final trump card, the Bloodwood Heaven-swallowing Cauldron, in a desperate bid for power. Zhao Kui triggers the Blood God Empowerment to force a temporary breakthrough, and the crowd realizes he's gunning for Golden Core power. Yi Zheng has been baiting this exact move the whole time, so he kicks off the Endless Fortune creation art to turn that massive energy spike into his own meal. Zhao Kui sneers at the kid, fully confident that his half-step Golden Core strength is about to end the fight, but he doesn't realize he's just handed his entire cultivation base over to his opponent. Zhao Kui unleashes his Severing Leaf Palm, a massive wave of pressure that slams directly into Yi Zheng. This sheer force of this half-step Golden Core technique is so overwhelming that the nearby spectators can't even remain on their feet. Yi Zheng takes the hit and starts bleeding, but he just grins because the timing is exactly what he needed. He immediately fires up the Endless Fortune creation art, shifting the flow of the battle in his favor. This technique begins to drain the energy from the palm strike, turning Zhao Kui's own trump card into a fuel source for Yi Zheng. Zhao Kui realizes his energy is being siphoned away, and he cannot wrap his head around how it is even possible. This Bloodwood Heaven-swallowing cauldron is being drained dry, so Zhao Kui screams in disbelief that a mere Foundation establishment cultivator is devouring his half-step Golden Core power. He accuses Yi Zheng of practicing forbidden demonic arts, but Yi Zheng just calls him an idiot, continuing to feed off the senior's stolen strength. Zhao Kui questions the Hehuan sect's reliance on demonic arts, but Yi Zheng keeps the pressure on, draining the senior dry until he can barely stand, leaving the crowd in total disbelief that a mere Foundation establishment cultivator could outclass a half-step Golden Core. And the Bloodwood Heaven-swallowing cauldron finally gives out, crumbling into pieces under the strain, so Yi Zheng rubs it in, telling the senior that his wager has officially shattered along with his pride. Zhao Kui is desperate to save his skin, offering up his entire family fortune to buy his life, but Yi Zheng isn't interested in the bribe, and he tells the senior that everything will belong to him anyway once he is dead, then finishes him off for good. This fight ends with Yi Zheng standing alone in the arena, and as the official declaration of his victory rings out, the crowd finally acknowledges the new winner. This crowd is reeling from Zhao Kui's defeat, realizing that Yi Zheng's power is actually on the level of a hallmaster, and they're already sweating about their past trash-talking. With the bet settled, the official announcement confirms that Yi Zheng is taking over as the new Elixir Hallmaster, and when the woman in charge asks if anyone has a problem with that, the entire crowd suddenly finds themselves in total agreement. She produces the official token of authority, and Yi Zheng accepts the position, promising to restore the Elixir Hall to its former glory. This woman realizes Yi Zheng was confident enough to use her as a wager, and she admits that her initial assessment of his character was completely off base. Meanwhile, Yi Zheng is already 70% through with his latest correction project, while Sun San steps in to collect the spoils of the recent victory, ordering the loser to deliver every last spirit stone to her residence by tomorrow, which he agrees to do without a second of hesitation. This elder credits Yi Zheng for the recent win, acknowledging his sharp eye for talent, and she promises him a special reward later tonight to show her appreciation. Then she walks off with a playful jab, leaving Sun San clearly irritated by the interaction, But Yi Jung ignores the tension and continues working on the cultivation burner, prompting a sharp protest from Sun San, who finds herself pinned down as he asks if she really wants to pass up a chance to recover her strength. Sun San is pushing through the discomfort, telling herself it is all to save her master, while Yi Jung reflects on his recent fight, realizing he only survived because he countered Zhao Kui's technique, and knowing he is still too weak to face a half-step golden core, he decides to accelerate his cultivation by any means necessary. But Elder Huang interrupts his progress, mocking him for relying on such a primitive method to drain the cauldron, and Yi Jung is caught off guard by her sudden appearance in his private quarters. Elder Huang reminds Yi Jung about the special reward she promised him earlier, and she starts undressing right in front of him and a stunned Sun San, revealing that the reward is actually the yin-yang harmonization method. But the noise from their session is bleeding through the walls into the next room, where the captive sect master is losing her mind over having to listen to their antics. This next morning finds Ye Jung already back at it, grinding out his cultivation while the others are still asleep, and that yin-yang harmonization method is proving to be a total cheat code, pushing him straight to the peak of the 6th level of foundation establishment. But his focus snaps to the door the second he senses a shift in the room, because the system immediately flags a hostile presence closing in on his location, and Elder Huang walks in with breakfast, though her intent is clearly far from friendly. Qian Fei Yue from the Elixir Hall shows up with breakfast, claiming she is just here to welcome the new hall master, and Ye Jung immediately identifies her as the hostile presence the system flagged earlier, while the system profile confirms she is Zhao Kui's sister and a 4th-level foundation establishment cultivator. But because her hostility is only at 50%, she does not trigger the system's correction protocol, so Yi Jung mocks her fake politeness, forcing her to double down on her submissive act to stay close. Yi Jung questions Qian Fei Yu about the origin of the pastries she brought him, and she plays the innocent disciple, claiming she just picked them up from the dining hall. This system scan reveals the food is laced with heartbreak grass, a poison that rots the stomach within 15 minutes. So Yi Jung barely has time to process the assassination attempt before the sectmaster finally stirs behind the curtain, and the sectmaster snaps at him, clearly still reeling from the exhaustion of their long night together. Yi Jung invites Qian Feiyue to join them for the pastries she just brought, while he secretly plans to use Xiaolange's unique physique to test if the food is actually poisoned, because the snack is laced with heartbreak grass, a lethal toxin that Qian Feiyue knows will kill him, but she suddenly hesitates, questioning whether his death would truly benefit her in the long run. And when Ye Jung presses her on where the food came from, she sticks to her story about the dining hall. Xiaolanji turns the tables on Qian Feiyue, forcing her to eat the very pastries she brought. And she doesn't stop there, cornering the assassin by calling out her obvious knowledge of the poison, which leaves Qian Feiyue completely unable to deny the trap. And as the system confirms Xiaolanji's correction progress has hit 80%, Yi Jung knows he is one step away from total control. Then the system rewards his calculated play with the advanced Myriad Woods affinity body. Yi Jung pretends to buy into the act, insisting to Xiaolanji that Qian Feiyue has no ill intent. Then he swallows the poisoned pastry right in front of her, and Xiaolanji goes pale as the reality of his gamble hits. She warns him that the heartbreak grass will kill him, but he just shrugs off the lethal threat like it is nothing, and the sight of him actually ingesting the poison shatters Xiaolanji's composure, making her panic over what she would do if he died. Yi Jung claims his stomach feels bloated, so Qian Feiyue jumps at the chance to fetch an antidote and get out of there. Yi Jung channels the energy from the heartbreak grass, using the lethal toxin to force a sudden cultivation breakthrough, and the system confirms he has successfully reached the 7th level of foundation establishment. So he turns to a horrified Qian Feiyue, sarcastically thanking her for the gift of those poisoned pastries, because his new Myriad Woods affinity body and cultivation technique have completely neutralized the poison, which leaves him in total control as he forces Qian Feiyue into servitude as his personal maid. Yi Jung makes it clear that Qian Feiyue's new role as his maid includes sharing his bed, and he immediately sends her to round up the Elixir Hall disciples, though the system warns her hostility is still too low for the correction room. Telling her she is next on his list, once Xiaolange's training is finished, sends her running for the exit, while a new arrival interrupts to tease him about his morning routine with the female disciple, and as she flirts with him, Yi Jung brushes off the encounter, reminding her that Qian Feiyue is just an assassin who tried to kill him. This visitor dismisses the recent assassination attempt as a blunt and amateur move, and she reminds Yi Jung that as the new Elixir Hall master, he needs to start handling these petty issues on his own terms. She suggests that making a public example of his methods will save him the headache of breaking them down individually, so Yi Jung agrees to put on a show and let the entire Elixir Hall know exactly who is in charge now. Then he heads straight for the main hall to make his entrance before the gathered disciples. These disciples are whispering about how the new hall master has barely been in the sect for a month, and they are still sweating over the unresolved fallout from Zhao Kui's death. Yi Jung walks in with an aura that shuts them up instantly, forcing the crowd to scramble as he makes his presence known. Scanning the room to ensure everyone is accounted for, he prepares to address the entire Elixir Hall. He announces that with Zhao Kui out of the picture, all old scores are officially settled and forgotten. Loyalty earns them a smooth ride, but he makes it clear that any hidden agendas will be met with a brutal response. This pressure radiating from Ye Zheng is heavier than anything they felt from Elder Wu, pinning the disciples in place. He cites the massive backlog from the recent war as justification for his new policy, ordering everyone to double their daily elixir output. Panic ripples through the hall as they realize this workload leaves zero time for their own cultivation, effectively turning them into machines. One brave soul dares to ask if the hallmaster plans to just stand by and watch them suffer, but Ye Zheng only offers a chilling laugh. Instead of just watching, he unleashes his own power to ignite the furnaces, forcing the alchemy process to run at his command. Ye Zheng mocks the disciples by claiming he can finish their entire day's work in just 15 minutes, and he immediately takes control of every furnace in the room to prove his point, telling the stunned crowd to watch closely because he is about to show them the real way to refine elixirs. Then he channels his energy to force every vessel to process at his breakneck pace, finishing the entire batch in seconds and holding up the finished product to show them exactly how it is done. These furnaces are already humming with intense energy as the refinement process accelerates. Disciples are losing their minds because managing 10 vessels at once is supposedly beyond even a golden core expert's reach. Fear of a massive explosion starts to spread through the crowd. Ye Zheng cuts through their panic by declaring that true alchemy relies on understanding the spirits of vegetation rather than raw power. This final snap of his hand seals the process with absolute precision. Ye Zheng isn't just showing off, he is proving that his mastery over plant spirits is on a completely different level than anyone else in the sect. He cycles through the refinement steps, warming, nourishing, and condensing the energy, with a level of focus that makes the air in the room feel heavy. This cauldrons hum in perfect synchronization, responding to his command as he pushes the internal pressure to its absolute limit. Suddenly, the lids blow off in a synchronized burst, signaling that the refinement process has reached its peak. Dozens of perfect elixirs rain down from the air, proving that he just turned a day's work into a few seconds of effort. Ye Zheng catches the finished batch of pills, proving he can handle the entire sect's workload in seconds. This disciples realize every single one is a supreme-grade elixir, and they lose their minds trying to process how he did it. Xiao Lanji watches the impossible feat of 10 furnaces finishing at once with perfect results, and she starts questioning if she is looking at a total monster or some kind of generational talent. This system interface confirms her internal correction progress is hitting 90%, meaning his display of power is already breaking her down. Ye Zheng watches the mental collapse of his target, noting that his first loyal servant is finally taking shape, and he turns to the rest of the sect to dare anyone else to question his authority or his methods. So the disciples immediately drop to their knees, finally admitting that his alchemy is on a level they cannot even comprehend. With the entire crowd now fully broken and submissive, Xiao Lanji stands alone in the center, struggling to maintain her composure, because her internal resistance is failing fast, and the sheer weight of his power is forcing her to accept that she is completely outmatched. Ye Zheng dismisses the rest of the sect and orders Qian Feiyue to follow him into the inner hall. He demands she serve him while he rests, and she has no choice but to follow his lead. This public humiliation is clearly getting to her, and the system confirms her hostility toward him is already spiking to 65%. Ye Zheng just walks off without a second thought, leaving her to stew in her own mounting frustration. Someone is watching his progress and starting to realize that he might actually be a reliable asset in the long run. Deep inside the Hehuan sect master's private chamber, a mysterious red crystal sits waiting for his next move. This sect master is channeling his energy into the artifact, trying to force a breakthrough that just will not come. Frustration boils over because his cultivation is completely stalled, leading him to demand answers from his captive. He blames her for the failure, calling her useless trash while keeping her bound and helpless. She fires back that his own incompetence is the real problem, and he immediately snaps, grabbing her by the hair to silence her. This captive keeps swearing she is not by Ningbing, but the sect master is not buying a single word of it. He labels her a liar and lashes out, proving he is completely losing his grip on reality. His obsession with breaking through his cultivation to crush the righteous faction is driving him to the edge, so he calls for Ruyan to handle his dirty work, and she appears instantly to do his bidding. He orders her to bring Huang Qinmei back to headquarters within 3 days, claiming he needs her for a critical task. Ruyan immediately accepts the order to track down Huang Qinmei, while the sect master fixates on the innate charm bone as his only remaining path to a cultivation breakthrough, shifting focus to Ye Zheng, who is currently forcing Qian Feiyue to massage his shoulders. And he mocks her lack of effort, demanding she put more strength into the work, which leaves her seething as she realizes just how much he enjoys pushing her around. Ye Zheng turns the tables on Qian Feiyue by offering to let her take his place, but she flatly refuses to play along with his games. He doubles down on the threats, casually mentioning he might just refine her into his own personal cultivation cauldron, and the thought of using a deadlier poison next time is the only thing keeping her going through this humiliation. He keeps pushing her to work harder, while the system confirms her hostility has spiked to 70%, just as an unexpected visitor arrives at the door to interrupt their twisted power play. Ye Zheng is still busy tormenting Qian Feiyue when he realizes Elder Huang has just shown up unannounced. And before he can even ask why, Huang Tianmei grabs him and insists they leave immediately, because Xiao Yaozi has issued a strict deadline for her to return to the Huan sect headquarters within 3 days.